These pictures from the deep ocean tell the tragic story of the Titanic. Who here doesn't know the story of the ill-fated Titanic? While many people knew what happened to the supposedly biggest and most powerful ship in the world, others learned about the tragedy when they saw the hit movie Titanic, depicting the tragedy through the love story of Jack, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and Rose, played by Kate Winslet. Titanic was a massive boat that met its tragic end when it collided with an iceberg, and it's been over 106 years since the incident. We are still struggling with many unanswered questions. Titanic boasted the name as an unsinkable ship, so why did it go on to hit a visible iceberg? Was there more to the story? Years later, we have access to some of the old photographs that tell us the tragic story of the passengers and leaves us with more questions about the ill-fated ship that sank. Queen of the Ocean. Titanic, the super cruise liner, got the name Queen of the Ocean, and they said that this was an unsinkable ship. The massive ship, along with another super cruiser, RMS Olympic, took its shape at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, and the facility was large. The shipyard was more or less 4 city blocks. Chief planner Thomas Andrews managed the progress and the formation of the RMS Titanic. The project went over budget, and there were many talks of cost cutting. However, certain expenses like using high-quality steel or a good number of lifeboats was not something that you can cut off in the name of making a savings. We later learned that the Titanic had fewer life crafts with the sheer volume of passengers they had on the ship. Did they cut costs at the expense of lifeboats and steel quality? Was negligence the reason for the vessel to sink? An inevitable crash. Chief Executive and Overseeing Chief J. Bruce Ismay was handling both RMS Titanic and RMS Olympic. Burdened by strikes, escalating costs, and limited budget, there's enough evidence that he cut costs to the point that he had a weak ship. For instance, his RMS Olympic struck a vessel, and although it was not fatal, it severely damaged the RMS Olympic that exposed its low quality. Likewise, Titanic from the outside was a massive and impressive gigantic structure, but from the inside, it was a mess of cheap installation and negligence. The Ship of Dreams. It was said to be the most luxurious ship of its time. A lot went in to decorate and give the vessel a magnificent look that it had. But today, we can call it an absolute scam, as there were signs of hiding the safety standards from the public. Not only there were scores of facts that showed that there was sheer negligence towards safety, but inside practices were not something to talk about as well. In 2017, Titanic expert Senan Maloney got his hand on the photo album found in an old attic containing pictures of Titanic before it left on its maiden journey. He saw those pictures and said that the magnificent Titanic was, in reality, a King Tut's tomb. He got access to these pictures from the owner of the photo, Steve Raffield. Looking at the photo album, it is safe to assume that Raffield did not anticipate to shake the world when he got his hands on this photo collection. He saw something that baffled him. There was a 30-foot scorch mark in the area of the boiler. This mark meant there was an internal fire that was so intense that it left a mark on the outside that was visible in photographs. Nobody knows about any in-house fire incidents. The big fire at Titanic. Now, there is speculation that something inside the reserve caused a spark that led to a massive fire inside. Regardless of the reasons, there is a possibility that the ship started to burn from the inside out. What's more chilling is that the picture suggests that this internal fire was going on, and they decided to sail, hoping to tackle the problem during the maiden voyage. There were no reports of fires though, but John Dilley and the engine room worker said otherwise. He said that the ship had hundreds of tons of coal and Titanic was on fire, while we did less and someone in power decided to sail the Titanic as it was burning from inside. They tried to fight the fire. The poor passengers, nearly 2,200 of them at Southampton, had no idea that the ship was on fire. Moving from Belfast, the ship was picking the passengers as if nothing was happening. Ismay had to protect the reputation of his company, and he had 11 of his best men working to put out the fire. But he did not tell the passengers anything. Was the fire the culprit that sank the ship, or was it the iceberg? We'll never know for sure, but we can tell one thing with certainty. The unsinkable ship was weak, on fire, and people were not aware of this as the voyage was set on April 10th, 1912. Super luxury. Titanic from the outside promised super luxury. The first class ticket was around $2,560. That is equivalent to $61,000 today. With first class, you get get 3 bedrooms along with 2 wardrobes, a bath, and a drawing room. Of course, the first class admission included super meals and other entertainments to the guests. Ismay was doing everything in his power to sell the ship as the most luxurious vessel in the world. It was still hell. While there were luxuries on the outside, the inside of the Titanic was on a destructive path. We already established that the ship was burning from the inside in a bunker that was storing coals. Next to the container, there was a watertight room, i.e. the bulkhead. The fire was burning at a high temperature, and it is possible that it weakened the steel. Maybe the ship could have sustained the damage as it struck the iceberg, but the fire weakened the vessels internally. We will never know the real reasons, but there is a strong probability that the fire destroyed the ship. The sinking of the Unsinkable ship, April 14th, 1912. The ship, going on its regular pace, crashed into an iceberg 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland. It took nearly 2 hours and 40 minutes after for the Unsinkable boat to sink. With almost 3 hours in hand, it looked like an easy task to save the 2,200 passengers. But it didn't work out that way, as only 706 people walked out of the tragedy alive. The iceberg made a big hole in the ship, and for a brief period, Titanic tried to show its resilience in the water compartments that held the water. But we already discussed the fire fiasco that was going on from the start of the journey. It was all too much for the ship to battle. Back in that time, there were no ground rules to have a certain number of lifeboats. However, ethically, Ismay should have had plenty of lifeboats. As we learned later, the ship had a laughable number of lifeboats, as Ismay was cutting corners to save money. Lord Mersey. The tragedy led to an investigation that revealed many shocking details. The fire incident came out, and it also turned out that many firefighters left the ship as it started its sail and was on fire. However, the High Court judge, John Charles Bingham, also got the name of Lord Mersey after the conclusion of the Titanic hearing. Rumors are that the judge was known to Ismay. He dismissed the fire incident and wrapped the case quickly, citing that the crash and the fall was because the ship collided with the iceberg. Years later, the photo album revealed a different story. Maloney studied through data and statements about the fire, the budget reductions, and the issues that led to the sinking, and he was left astonished. The aftermath. The sinking saw the negligence of Ismay. Although he did manage to escape not only the public, but also the legal process later, his reputation took a big hit. Thousands of people lost their lives. Many of those were poor immigrants. They were on the ship, not for the luxuries, but to live their American dreams. New laws and associations came out, underlying many new safety rules and regulations for shipping vessels. It became mandatory for the ship to have as many lifeboats as they can. The lifeboats should be enough to accommodate all the passengers and crew in case of an emergency. The only positive thing that came out of the epic tragedy was that the cruise lines got to comply with many enhanced and better passenger safety rules and shipping regulations. Photograph of the famous band. Now everyone knows about the story of the band who refused to stop their performance and played till the ship sank. They wanted to play their part to offer some moments of peace to the terrified passengers. Their photographs are both sad and terrifying, as it showed a happy band who later performed till their last breath for the audience. It was a band of 8 members, and the leader of the band, Wallace Hartley, had no idea that all the people in the photograph would be playing their final song sometime later. However, even today, people respect the brave band for their heroic effort to comfort the passengers while the ship was sinking. The Grand Staircase. Now, you must have seen the staircase in the movie, but the original staircase, as seen in the photograph, was more magnificent. The Grand Staircase combined many decks and was one of the best and most attractive hallmarks on the vessel. However, the access to the staircase was only for the first class passengers, where those who were at the third class could only see a part of it. The gym. There were many hallmarks on the Titanic, but one would not expect a gym there. But not only did the ship have a gym, but it was also one of the best gyms of those times, with all the latest technology that you had back then. Photographs of the gym showed electrical horses, camels, and cycling machines. Of course, the facility was only for the first class passengers, and when you see the pictures of people working out, it is terrifying to know that later these people would be fighting for their lives. Games for children. Sure, many things were entertaining for the grown-ups, but were the kids missed? Of course not. There were not many children on board, but the ill-fated ship had 126 children on board, and 60 children died when the ship sank. A picture showed the kids having a good time while they were playing shuffleboard on the promenade deck. Even gym timings allowed the kids to take their turn on the machines from 1 to 3 p.m. Photograph of the first class lounge. A fashionable lounge on deck A was for the first class passengers to enjoy a smoke and socialize. Some also ate their lunch there, while others discussed their business affairs. It was not a luxury that came without a price, as it was around $1,700 to enjoy the perk. Another thing that made the lounge famous was because the band who played their last songs chose the lounge as their final resting place. The Barber Shops. The ship had 2 barber shops where people could go for an occasional trim. One barber shop was exclusive and for the first class barber, another barber shop was for second class passengers. There was nothing there for the third class passengers. Café Parisien. The cafe was a popular outdoor setting for people to enjoy their tea. The cafe gave a magnificent look at the Atlantic Ocean. It was also a thing of luxury and the first cafe ever to become part of an ocean liner. The cafe was popular for the first class people, especially the younger ones. The other second and third class passengers could never even see the cafe, and then the ship sank. Luxurious first class cabins. These were classy and luxurious cabins with sections for elite rooms extended to the private deck. Now you may have felt that the scenes in the movies that showed the first class cabins might have been an exaggeration, but these ultra private rooms were even more luxurious from what was shown in the film. The same spot at B deck was also the sign of the biggest misfortune, as it was the same spot where most of the passengers gathered when the ship sank.